Okay, 2.4. Our take 5 was talking about frenemies and allies and why would you be friends with someone you didn't actually like? What is there to gain? Some people said that you might have a common enemy. Other people said that perhaps that person, even though you dislike them, can help you with something you need or provide you something you can't do for yourself. Um, but that usually frenemies, there's no basis of commonality there except for mutual benefit. There's not actually an alliance there out of friendship or need. So we're going to talk about that today in Europe. Um, we already talked about religious wars in Spain. We talked about Philip II and the Spanish Armada against England. We talked about the Spanish versus the Dutch and the Spanish kicking out the Morisco. So we dealt with Spain. Today we're going to talk about France and the Holy Roman Empire. So in France, they get a new king, Francis. He is very young. So because he is young, he is unable to rule by himself. He needs a regent or a regency. His regent is his mother, and his mother is very Catholic. She is also from the Medici family. So she is ruling in place of her young son, and her goal is to make sure that France stays Catholic. This is at the height of the Protestant Reformation. She does not want to allow any Protestant threats to take over in Catholic. The problem is Francis is young, he is sick, and so are his little brothers. So Francis dies, mother is still in charge. Her younger sons are now officially the king, but she still is in power. And she realizes that her sons might not live to become king in their own right, fully functioning and ruling on their own. So she needs another plan in order to maintain power for her family and Catholic power in France. So she decides to set up her older daughter, here on the right, set up her older daughter with a diplomatic marriage. She wants to set up her daughter with a prince from a different territory, and they can rule together as joint monarchs, as king and queen of France. The issue is the daughter is Catholic, and the prince that the mother chooses is Protestant. Now, she does this. Why? Why, if she is pro-Catholic, why would she choose a Protestant? Well, because he has land that France can benefit from, and maybe she's hoping to, influence what few Protestants there are in France. These Protestants in France are called Huguenots or Huguenots. So these are specifically French Protestant Calvinists. Again, we see the Calvinists. That's why Calvin was the only denomination we addressed in the review unit. So they go ahead with planning the wedding, uniting the two kingdoms and the two religions. However, the Parisians in particular, the French citizens of Paris, who are extremely Catholic, do not like the idea of a Protestant prince coming in. So when this Protestant prince comes to Paris for the wedding with all of his friends, all of his relatives who are also Protestant, the Parisians start killing the Protestants. This is the St. Bartholomew's Day massacre. The Protestants are being killed by the Catholic Parisians. This is how strongly the French feel about their religion. So now our prince has to make a choice. Does he stay a Protestant? Does he stay true to his personal faith? I mean, this is what happens to Protestants in Paris. They are beheaded. Children are killed. People are hanged. People are thrown in the river. The Catholics in Paris do not treat Protestants well. Even Mama Medici, she doesn't really have all that much compassion. So Henry, it says Henry of Navarre, he is the prince. He decides, you know what? I'm going to become a Catholic. It is not worth my life. It is not worth risking this potential power to eventually become King of France to stay Protestant. I will become a Catholic. And he famously says, Paris is well worth a Mass. It's worth it to have to go to Mass, become a Catholic, if I can gain Paris and gain the crown of France. So he converts, and the Catholics in Paris and France are much more pleased with this than with the alternative. Henry eventually becomes King of France in 1589. So this is the first king you are going to put down on that king's sheet. For France, and his family name is Bourbon, Bourbon. He is from the Bourbon family. So he becomes King of France. And the Protestants are not sure how they feel about this because he left them behind. He abandoned the Protestants and the Huguenots in France in order to take power. The Protestants are also unhappy because the Catholics still dislike them. The Catholics are still discriminating against Protestants in France. And the Protestants are a very small minority. So, in the hopes of creating religious peace, for a number of reasons, Henry creates something called the Edict of Nantes. Now, Henry, as the king, he wants religious peace for a number of reasons. One, a peaceful country is a successful country. If people aren't killing each other, that means they can be working in the fields, bringing in the wheat so everyone has enough bread. It means if they don't die, they stay alive and they can pay taxes. So that's part of it. And also, I think he partially still feels sympathy for the Protestants. He had that heritage. So in the Edict of Nantes, this is his declaration about religious tolerance in France. These are essentially rules he is giving to Catholics in France about how to tolerate the Protestants. Now, it was sort of unlikely because the Catholics clearly feel very strongly about their religion. They dislike the Protestants. And Henry sort of says, I don't care if you don't like this edict. I don't care if you don't like these new rules. You must follow them because I am the king. That's what happens. And this is an early example of absolute power, meaning the king is using his authority to say, you can't challenge me. I am the ultimate authority in the country. So Henry's main legacy is trying to establish religious peace, religious tolerance between Catholics and Protestants in France. But then Henry dies, as kings usually do, and his son is Louis. So Louis is going to become king at 9. Again, he is too young to rule on his own, so he needs a regent. Again, he's going to look to his mother. So his mother, this is the princess who is at the wedding. His mother is a Medici, so she is Catholic. The other regent is Cardinal Richelieu. A cardinal is a high position in the Catholic Church. So Louis's regents are both very, very pro-Catholic. In many ways, they are going to undo some of the religious tolerance Henry of Navarre created. They also want to make sure that France stays Catholic. So these regents arrange a marriage for Louis to Anne of Austria. She is from the Habsburg family. The other Habsburgs we've talked about so far are in Spain. So this is the other branch. Anne of Austria would be a good diplomatic marriage for political alliances, and also she is Catholic, so maintaining that Catholic power in France. So through all of this, again, there are tensions between Protestants and Catholics. Many Catholics are discriminating, killing, enacting violence upon the Huguenots in France. So Louis, in the interest of peace, not because of religion, but because of peace, he creates the Peace of Alès. And this is just another attempt at peace for the sake of the country's well-being, not because he likes the Huguenots, not because he supports Protestantism, but because he wants a peaceful country. Okay, so we're going to skip now to Austria and talk about the Habsburgs there. Austria is one territory within the Holy Roman Empire, and the Habsburg family usually is the Holy Roman Emperor. They control the Holy Roman Empire. There's a few things to consider with the Holy Roman Empire. First, you need to understand that as an empire, it is one large government that controls a number of small territories. It's a little bit like the United States. We have a national federal government, and then we have individual states, and each state has their own governor. It's the same thing with the Holy Roman Empire. Lots of little territories united by a single emperor, and within those territories they have princes. So that's one issue. On the religious front, the Ottoman Empire is still interested in gaining power in Europe. They had tried coming up through Spain and were successful for a few hundred years, but that's when Ferdinand and Isabella kicked them out with the Inquisition. So the Ottomans are going to try now to get power through Europe. They're going to go up through Turkey, up through Greece, and now they are on the back porch, the eastern border of the Holy Roman Empire. So this is a Muslim threat right next door. So the Austrian Habsburgs and the Holy Roman Empire has to deal with that. And then also within the conflict of Catholic versus Protestant. There are Catholic princes, there are Protestant princes, and some of these princes say, because I am Catholic, I say that all the people in my little territory should be Catholic, or vice versa. Because I'm Protestant, I declare all of my citizens will be Protestant. And this leads to a lot of tension and, again, violence. So the Holy Roman Empire, in an attempt to create peace, writes the Peace of Augsburg. Rather than saying that the individual princes should declare what religion their people are, the Peace of Augsburg says, let the people choose. Let the people decide what religion they want. So that is much better. There still is going to be tension between the two faiths, but the Peace of Augsburg helps alleviate some of that tension. So there's peace for a few decades, but by the early 1600s, that tension is just too much to overcome. And this leads us to the 30 Years' War. Okay, so the 30 Years' War, 1618 to 1648, starts when the Holy Roman Emperor, the new one, he's a Habsburg, he says, I don't care about the Peace of Augsburg. I think I'm Catholic and all of my people should be Catholic. And the Protestants, especially in Bohemia, don't appreciate that. And again, we have Calvinists. Those Calvinists are just troublemakers. Bohemia is one of those small territories within the Holy Roman Empire. And the Bohemians have a history of challenging the church. So the Bohemians rebel. In order to prove their point, the Holy Roman Empire gets support from other Catholic countries. Spain, who's also Habsburg, so they have that in common, and also Poland. So we have three big Catholic countries against small Bohemia. There's no chance Bohemia could have won in this fight. The war could have ended right there. It probably would be a much smaller event in history. Maybe you wouldn't even need to know it. However, more countries get involved. Other countries do not like what happened to Bohemia, so they want to support them. Denmark, another Calvinist country, their new king wants to support Bohemia, especially because they had at one point been under the Holy Roman Empire and they understood what it was to be under someone else's control. They want to support Bohemia, so they send troops. So now on Team Catholic, we have still Holy Roman Empire, Spain, Poland. Team Protestant, we have Bohemia and Denmark. Denmark's a small country too, so we have two small territories, two small countries against three big countries. Still not even, but it is more balanced than previously. Denmark has some allies as well. Denmark is allied with Sweden. Sweden is also Protestant. So the political alliance and the religious commonality, Sweden decides to help Team Protestant. And Sweden is big, and Sweden has a really good military. So now we have 3 against 3, much more even. And Sweden is allied with France. France, a Catholic country, decides to join Team Protestant. Now, why would they do that? Religiously, they don't have anything in common, but France is more concerned with the political and geographic independence they will gain. France is surrounded by the Habsburgs. To the southwest are the Spanish Habsburgs. To the east are the Austrian Habsburgs in the Holy Roman Empire. France doesn't have any chance politically with the Habsburg family. France now sees the opportunity. If they can join this war and defeat Team Catholic, then France will gain power in the continent. And that's exactly what happens. It is now 3 against 4. Holy Roman Empire, Spain, Poland versus Bohemia, Denmark, Sweden, and France. Holy Roman Empire is outnumbered. They lose, and the war ends with the Peace of Westphalia. 1648 is definitely a date I would like you to know. So the Peace of Westphalia is the treaty that ends this war. And with most treaties, with the ending of most wars, the losers lose stuff. They lose territory. They lose money. So the effects of the treaty, or the Peace of Westphalia. First, the Holy Roman Empire loses some territory. They lose some street cred. They are not the big, powerful country anymore. And it is more difficult for the Habsburg Holy Roman Empire to conspire with Habsburg Spain. That means that France emerges as the most powerful country on the continent of Europe. This is a big deal. France will now be the big player. Spain is in decline. Austria and Holy Roman Empire in decline from here on out. Also, going back to the ideas of the Peace of Augsburg, that it does not work to try and force the people to be the same religion as their leader. So reestablishing and reaffirming freedom of religion for the individual and for the individual territory. Lastly, countries that were already sort of functioning independently now are recognized as independent. The Netherlands and Switzerland were already sort of working as their own countries, but the Holy Roman Empire and other countries did not officially recognize them. And this is important. We're going to see in this class that you're not legitimate as a country until other countries say so. Okay, that is it for the 30 Years' War and for 2.4.